The Chicago Bears control their destiny in the NFC. Not in the NFC North, the NFC as a whole, which obviously includes the NFC North. We'll kind of take a look at the playoff picture and outlook for the Bears with 5 weeks left to go coming up next. I'm Harrison Graham. This is Chicago Bears Now. As the month of December has arrived, the Chicago Bears are on top of the NFC, and they control their destiny to the number one seed in the NFC from here on out. We're going to break down kind of all the scenarios, compare some schedules with other teams in the mix in the NFC, but let's just take a look at the playoff picture right now. We'll outline how the Bears already have the tiebreaker over the Rams and like even the Seahawks if they're leading the NFC West, and why they control their own destiny over those teams, plus teams like the 49ers, who they still have head-to-head game with, obviously the Packers, who they have a couple of head-to-head games with, and then we'll kind of peep on those other NFC teams as well. For the Bears, 5 games left. At the Packers, Browns at home, Packers at home, at the 49ers, Lions at home. Not exactly easy, right? I mean, that Browns game at home you should certainly get. But, you know, Myles Garrett can just wreck a game, and you never know. And, you know, those other games are going to be tough. But you know, I think the Bears have proven at this point, even their tough matchups, we just saw them kick Philly's ass, they're going to have chances in those games. Before we kind of dive into this here, fill in the blank for us. The Bears will get the number blank seed in the NFC. Right now they have number 1. Will they stay number 1? Will they be the 2 seed, the 5 seed, the 7? Do you still think they'll miss the playoffs? I know a few people are still skeptical. Let me know down in the comment section. All right, the Bears control their own destiny over all teams, including the Los Angeles Rams. I thought Sam Phalen had a good breakdown here of comparing the Bears and the Rams. He had this note. He says, it's mathematically impossible for the Rams to get the tiebreaker over Chicago. And what that means is if they end up with the same record, the Bears would have the tiebreaker. And the reason is it's determined by conference record. And Chicago is currently 6-2 against the NFC with 4 to go. Los Angeles is 4-3 with 5 to go. So any mathematical equation, if the Bears go 4-1, 2-3, 3-2, whatever, if they end up tied with the Rams with the same record, they own the tiebreaker. So as long as Chicago has the same amount of wins and losses as the Rams do, they will finish ahead of the Rams, which is what it currently sits at right now. And you look at the Rams' remaining schedule, I would say theirs is a little bit easier than the Bears, right? You have Arizona twice. I mean, at minimum, you're getting one of those. You're probably winning both, if we're being completely honest. Lions at home, that's probably going to be a spot if we want the number 1 seed, where we want Detroit to win that game. Certainly at Seattle, you know, that's a coin flip in terms of who benefits the Bears more, because Seattle only has 3 losses too. We'll get to them in a second. At Atlanta, big Falcons fans in that game, certainly, you know, and the Cardinals. So Falcons and Cardinals specifically, we would love just out of those 3 games, can one of those games be a loss for the Rams? That would be huge for the Bears. I would say their schedule's a little easier the rest of the way, although obviously the Lions and Seahawks will be difficult. Speaking of the Seahawks, the Bears also control their own destiny over Seattle just by the simple fact that the Bears currently have 2 losses in the conference. The Seahawks have 3. You look at Seattle's remaining schedule, not exactly murderer's row, right? I mean, at Atlanta this week, kind of feels like they're done after losing to the Jets last week. Colts at home, they are reeling. You know, if that was in Indy, that's probably more of a toss-up, but at home, I like Seattle in that spot. We'll certainly be rooting for Indy here. Sorry, producer Cullen. Rams at home, Thursday Night Football. That'll be a fun game. At the Panthers and then at the 49ers as well. San Francisco, by the way, we'll get to them in a bit. They're only a half game back in the West all of a sudden. So that is a 3-team race, whereas the North has become more of a 2-team race. But again, to revisit the Rams and the Seahawks, the Bears are 6-2 in the conference. Both Seattle and Los Angeles have 3 losses in the conference. Now, I don't know if the mathematical scenarios, if the Bears and Seahawks finish with the same record, if Chicago is guaranteed to have that tiebreaker like they will do with the Rams, but simple control destiny. If the Bears went out and the Seahawks went out and they both only have 3 losses, the Bears will have it because they have 1 less loss in conference currently. Okay, the Green Bay Packers. The simple fact here is just because you play them twice, right? So, like, you win both of those, you control your destiny, you're going to finish ahead of Green Bay. The other Packers games remaining, other than the 2 ones with the Bears, Broncos in between. And these next 3 weeks for this Bears-Packers deal, you play each other twice, but big advantage Bears. The Bears play the Browns at home in between. Green Bay goes to Denver in between. You got to take advantage of that, either on the front end or on the back end. Back end is going to be a better opportunity to do so because that's going to be a physical game in Denver against that defense. Short week, Green Bay's got to fly back home and play the Bears at Soldier Field. So that's really where you got to take advantage. That's why this week, if you somehow won at Lambeau, you're feeling pretty good about your chances in that rematch in Week 16. Green Bay still has to play Baltimore at home. At Minnesota, you would think, by then, who knows what Minnesota's record even is. That would be big advantage Bears. But these next 4 weeks for Green Bay, not exactly easy. And obviously, the head-to-head games are just massive, right? You have to at least split. You have to at least split if you are Chicago, if you're going to win the North, and if certainly you're going to win the NFC in the regular season. So, but the Bears are currently ahead of the Packers, and they play them twice. You win both times, that's how you control your destiny. Okay, if you hate the Packers, it's Packers Hate Week. Get the FGB chants going down in the comments section below, and I want to see it all week long. Social media, comment section, DM it to me on social. Let's get the FGBs rolling. All right, we love Prize Picks. We appreciate Prize Picks. They are sponsoring today's show, best daily fantasy sports app that exists. The holiday season is here. It's the best time for sports, bowl games around the corner, basketball, hockey games, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which games to watch, there is one place where it feels good to be right. That is Prize Picks. Cool new feature on Prize Picks. They now have early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. 2 or more players take more or less in their stat projections. That qualifies for a lineup, and how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose the flex play option, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want bigger payouts, go for the power play. No matter how you play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Little 2-player lineup I like for this weekend. I think DeAndre Swift finds the end zone. I think Ben Johnson's going to run the rock a lot. And Swift has had some big games against the Packers. Remember last year when he left Xavier McKinney in the dust at Soldier Field? Like he's played well against Green Bay, so I like him to score. That's a demon pick. And then Jordan Love, I took less on his passing yards. The high in Green Bay on Sunday is 15 degrees. That means with wind chill, single digits, slight chance at negative temperatures. These teams are going to want to run the football, so I'm going less on that one. $20 lineup to win $80 with the demon play in there. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use our code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, they're a half game back of the Bears based on win-loss. I think they actually only have 2 NFC losses as well. So if San Francisco were to beat the Bears and win the NFC West, they could get back into a position to even get the 1 seed themselves. And look, they're in a good spot. I got to be honest. And they've had a lot of injuries, and I give Shanahan and Saleh and that crew a lot of credit. Bye week this week. They've got the Week 14 bye. Then coming out of the bye, soft landing spot. Tennessee at home. I mean, shit. You could you could load manage that game if you wanted to. At the Colts Monday night. It's on the road, but it'll be good weather conditions. That's good for Brock Purdy. Extra day there to get ready. I mean, honestly, they might do some Colts prep to overlap with Tennessee, if we're being honest. Then they get the Bears Sunday Night Football, and then finish with the Seahawks. So I expect San Francisco to win those first 2 games. And then that Bears-49ers game. What's funny about this game, that felt like a game, okay, the winner of that game gets the 6 or 7 seed a few weeks ago. Is that game potentially for the number 1 seed? That's not impossible. If the Niners win out 13-4, pretty good chance they're the 1 seed. Like that is very much on the table for San Francisco, but the Bears do control their destiny over them again because they play them head-to-head, and the Niners already have 4 losses overall. The Bears only have 3, so it's simple. You went out, you beat the Niners. Doesn't matter what else they do. They cannot surpass you. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, pretty simple, right? You already beat them head-to-head. They have 4 losses. You have 3 losses. You look at Philly's remaining schedule. Not murderer's row. At the Chargers, you may not have to face Justin Herbert, who had left-hand surgery. But it's Monday Night Football extra day. We'll see if he plays. You get the Raiders at home. You would think they would win that game, even though they're teetering. Commanders twice. You would think they at least split. And then at the Bills. So the Eagles are not in a great spot just in terms of how they're playing, but their schedule's not that tough. I mean, at Buffalo's their toughest game, but they've been week to week in terms of how they've played. But the Bears are in good shape here because they're a full game ahead, but really 2 because the Bears have the head-to-head. So, the Bears would have to go like 2-3, and the Eagles would have to go 4-1 for Philadelphia to surpass them. And, I don't view the Eagles as a team that's going to win 4 or all 5 of their remaining games. I would guess 3-2 is probably more likely. All right, subscribe to the channel. If you're a diehard Bears fan, we're here every single day. At least 2 videos per day on the channel. We do shorts as well, and we go live every Monday, Thursday, and game day. So we're not leaving anything on the table. If news comes out, we're covering it and a whole lot more. So subscribe today. It is free. Okay, you look back at the playoff picture. We've kind of analyzed the teams with 4 losses or less, right? The Rams and Seahawks also 9-3. The Eagles 8-4. Niners 9-4. Packers 8-3-1. Let's just take a look at the other teams, still in the hunt. Atlanta, Minnesota, Washington, and then the teams already eliminated. They're done, obviously. But the NFC South, you got Tampa at 7-5. If they were to run the table, maybe they enter the mix to, probably not get the 1 seed, but maybe the 2 or 3, which could impact the Bears. And this is a pretty easy schedule. I know the Bucs have not been playing well, but they get the Saints at home. They get the Falcons at home on a short week. That's big advantage for the home team. They play the Panthers twice. Carolina's kind of Jekyll and Hyde. They look terrible in primetime against the 49ers. Then they beat the Rams. So which Panthers do we get? Who knows? At Dolphins, they've been playing better as of late. I'll give Mike McDaniel credit. That team has not bailed on him in terms of the players. But then they play the Panthers again. Like, if Carolina plays B-minus football, they're winning 3 or 4 of their final 5 games and maybe all 5. So, I think they win that division. I don't view them as a threat for the 1 seed, but we'll see. Lions at 7-5. We'll talk about this Cowboys game in a second. That's obviously huge. Then they go to the Rams. Steelers at home. They're teetering, but you never know. Vintage Rodgers' performance could be on the board. You never know. At Minnesota, that's relatively easy, but then at the Bears. But these next 2 weeks for Detroit, at minimum, they got to split, but they may have to win both if they want to be a playoff team. So this is a big stretch for the Lions. The Cowboys, who are red hot right now, again, we'll break down this Lions game, Thursday Night Football in Detroit. Minnesota on Sunday night at home. You would think that's big advantage, Dallas. Chargers at home. I like Dallas getting them at home. At Washington on Christmas. I mean, they've been feisty. They played well against Denver the other night, but you finish with them and the Giants. Dak historically against the division, really, really good. If they win this Lions game, Dallas, they could run the table. Loser of this game on Thursday is in big trouble, especially if Detroit loses, because then they play the Rams the next week. If the Detroit Lions lose at home to Dallas, I don't think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're going to make it because I don't think they'd beat the Rams. Then they're 7-7. They'd probably have to run the table just to have a chance after that, and that includes coming to Soldier Field where it's probably going to be like 10 degrees. That's advantage Chicago in those elements. So this Thursday night game, buckle up. That is a major NFC playoff implications game. And then you got the Panthers, kind of like San Francisco. They got the late bye week here. At the Saints, Bucks, Seahawks, at Bucks. I've kind of been the shit on the Panthers guy, but I do think Dave Canales has done a pretty good job. Bryce Young has clear limitations, but Sunday against the Rams, really good game plan. Run. Bryce Young makes some timely plays for us. 15-20. What's the key number in that stat for Bryce Young? 20. He only threw it 20 times. You don't want him throwing 35 times. I don't know what the hell Canales was doing against the Niners the week before. You have 2 good running backs. Run the football. Bryce Young makes some timely plays. Tedero, McMillan, etc. And, grind these games out. And those 2 Bucks games are going to be big. They're going to have – I think there's no scenario where they enter Week 16 where that game's not a win for first place in the division. I guess if they lost to the Saints and Tampa wins this week during the bye week, but other than that scenario, that game is probably for first place in the South, and then maybe it is again in Week 18 as well. So going to be very, very interesting. I think it's NFC South championship or bust for Carolina. I don't think they'll make the wild card, but you never know. All right, who is your dream first-round opponent for the Bears? If you could pick any team in the playoff picture that you could face, who would it be? To me, it's Carolina, especially if you get them at home and it's like 10 degrees. Now, they can run the ball with those backs, but Bryce Young in those conditions, if he can slow the run game down enough, I don't love his chances in elements. That's not a very realistic first-round opponent. If they make the playoffs, they're probably the 4 seed, so that means you're the 5 seed, so you're playing them on the road. A more realistic one, like, would you take your chances at home against the Niners in like a potential 2-7 game? Seattle in like a 3-6, 2-7 game maybe? I do not want to play the Rams. I don't love the idea of a third game against Green Bay in the first round in 6 weeks. It's just a lot of you're playing each other a bunch. That feels like a coin flip. So you guys let me know. Dream first round opponent for the Chicago Bears. Hopefully the Bears aren't playing in the first round. How about dream first round opponent? Bye. That is my dream first round opponent. And the Bears control their destiny to getting the number 1 overall seed. Hopefully they can do it. Long way to go, like Ben Johnson said. Subscribe and bear down.